Good evening. I would like to welcome you to the regular public meeting of the Henry County Board of Commissioners for 6:30 p.m. Monday, November 16, 2010. At this time, I would invite you to join us for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Stamey.
Dear Father, Lord Jesus, thank you for this day, Lord. Thank you for this beautiful day you've given us. Thank you for our great nation, Lord. Lord, I pray for our leaders who continue to guide this great nation of ours, Lord. I pray tonight you give each and each one of us wisdom and knowledge as we make decisions, Lord, that affect everyone in this county and in this community, Lord. Lord, I just pray you that at the end of the day, we give you honor and glory for our results. We ask these things in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before I ask for an acceptance of the agenda, I'd like to call the meeting to order and amend the agenda to add executive session. And we need to add that directly after the proclamations. And with that amendment being made, I'll ask for an acceptance of the agenda. Have a motion by Mr. Basler, second by Mr. Roark. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. At this time, I'd like to read a proclamation in appreciation of Life Management Solutions' generous sponsors. And following the reading of the proclamation, I'd like to ask Ms. Sandra Reagan if she would like to come to the podium and say a few words, and then we're going to present certificates to each one of the sponsors represented here this evening. Whereas Life Management Solutions was established in 2008 to provide concepts to help Henry County citizens overcome adversity by providing effective, real-life application strategies to build healthy individuals, youth, families, and communities. And whereas the award-winning programs have garnered both state and national attention, having been called one of the best research-based programs in Georgia and a model program in the United States by the state of Georgia and the National Associations of Counties, respectively. And whereas each year approximately 1,300 people participate in these programs, which give these individuals the tools they need to improve their lives, strengthen their relationships, and become productive citizens. And whereas these programs would not be possible, nor would as many people be able to participate if it were not for the generous support of Life Management Solutions' numerous sponsors, including Carrabba's Italian Grill, the City of Stockbridge, Eastside Baptist Church, Glen Haven Baptist Church, Henry Daily Herald, J.C. Penney's, O'Charley's, Register and Nelson Environmental Consultants, Salem Baptist Church, Stockbridge Assembly of God, Tabernacle of Praise, and Zion Baptist Church. And whereas these organizations have demonstrated their support not only through their tremendous financial contributions, but many have also lent their support in other ways by volunteering their time and contributing resources to ensure the continued success of these programs. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the Henry County Board of Commissioners wishes to express its heartfelt gratitude for all of these wonderful sponsors who saw the difference Life Management Solutions is making in Henry County and desire to help the department expand its services through their generous donations. In so doing, each has helped to bring about positive, life-altering, and often amazing changes in our citizens, their family, and our community as a whole, the 16th day of November, 2010. Can we give them a hand? And Sandra, if you'd like to say a few words, and then we'll have the sponsors come forward. We have certificates for each of them.
We're very passionate about what we do. We love what we do. It's not a job. We could not do it without the support of our sponsors, our community of friends, and the Board of Commissioners. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of Life Management Solutions staff. We could not do it without each and every one of you.
Thank you. And if our sponsors would come forward, those that we called your name, we'd like to present you with a certificate and also have a photo with the group. There are so many of our programs in the county that would not function without our volunteers. Life Management Solutions is one of them. Of course, Henry County Parks and Recreation is another. And we are certainly a better county when our citizens participate and become partners with us in every area possible. So we're so very thankful for the sponsors of Life Management Solutions. With that being said, we're going to move on in the agenda. And we are going to have a brief executive session. And when we convene into executive session, we will be there probably about 10 minutes or so. Ask that if you're here for the rezoning requests that are on the agenda, that you just remain with us. We will be back out in just a few minutes. And with that being said, I need a motion to convene into executive session for potential pending litigation, personnel, and land acquisition.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stamey, second by Mr. Roark. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. We return. I need a motion to reconvene into public session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stamey, second by Mr. Bowman. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. I need a motion for approval of an affidavit and a resolution pertaining to executive session.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion by Mr. Stamey, second by Mr. Roark. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to planning and zoning services, the first item is a request to amend Chapter 2, Table 2.03.03 regarding amusement, sports, or recreation establishment uses of the Henry County Unified Land Development Code. Our presenter is Sherry Hobson-Matthews, Planning and Zoning Services Director, Exhibit Number 6. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. As Chairman Mathis has indicated, the Planning and Zoning staff is before you tonight for a Unified Land Development Code text amendment. The amendment is a result of a number of requests through business licenses that our department has received regarding amusement-type uses, batting cages, gymnasiums, karate studios, bowling alleys, and amusements of that sort. Currently, the Unified Land Development Code does not allow those type of uses as a permitted use or as a conditional use in the M1 or M2 zoning districts. So what staff has done is prepared a text amendment, and within the text amendment, we've presented two options, either to allow those type of uses outright or to allow those uses with an approved conditional use meeting the development standards for that zoning district. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions should you have them.
Does any board member have a question or comment pertaining to this item? All right, if not, Ms. County Attorney, are we required to have public comment on text amendments?
It's all advertised. If you advertise this for a public hearing, it will be a public hearing on it.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in reference to the a text amendment to the Unified Land Development Code? All right, if not, I'll go back to the board, and there are two different options that you, Mr. Stamey?
Sure. Did we not want to include an indoor firing range in this too?
That will be covered as well. We just listed a few examples, but indoor firing ranges, any type of amusements or establishments that are indoor would be included within this text amendment.
Okay.
So we can spell it out if you'd like for us
I'd like to see that included if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Basler?
Sherry, on number 2, that would mean that it would come back in front of the zoning advisory
That is
board
correct.
for conditional use?
Yes, sir, that is
So they
correct.
could look at all the conditions and everything that we applied?
Yes, sir.
Anyone
Just
else?
for clarification.
You have two resolutions, one that approves it with a conditional use attached to it, or one that permits it that allows it as a permitted use. So of those,
to make a motion to include it, to have a conditional use.
Okay, I have a motion to approve it, the text amendment with it as a conditional use requirement, and a second by Mr. Bowman. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for case MC-MDP-10-02. Albany Bank and Trust of Albany, Georgia request a modification to an approved master development plan for property located on the north side of Jonesboro Road, west of Chambers Road, in land lots 85, 108, and 109 of the 6th District. Our presenter is Brecca Johnson, Planning and Zoning Services, and it's Exhibit Number 7. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, board members. Yes, the applicant is requesting to modify a master development plan, which was approved by you all in April of 2005. As you can see from the zoning map, the property is zone plan development, which consists of residential, office, and commercial uses. Currently, the property is undeveloped. However, the portion to the north is being proposed for residential, and it's approximately 28.6 acres for that portion. The overall development is 56.2 acres, and the modification is mostly for the single-family residence pod. Following the rezoning approval in 2005, the developers did a floodplain and wetlands delineation study, which showed that some of the property at the north end, which was proposed for open space, was generally wetlands, and there are only certain things you can do in the wetlands. And as you can see on the approved plan, or the approved conceptual plan at the north end, was the open space that was supposed to have been there. But the modification would propose that there would be an elimination of that walking trail that would be surrounding that open space due to the delineation and wetland study. Another one of the modifications would be to allow for the streets to be relocated. Streets are currently in on the property, and to give you a good idea, I've got an aerial here to show you. And as I stated earlier, the residential pod is at the north end, and the streets are currently in. The applicant is wishing to reduce the number of lots from the approved 93 to 83 lots. They would like to exclude lots 35 through 61 and have those to have exclude those lots from having rear entry garages. And I'll show you what the site plan that they're proposing as well. The applicant concedes that they'd like to take the rear lots off of the property on the far western end, and the northern end where the open space was to be located, to cut down on any negative impacts that may be imposed by the property owners to the west, which is Holly Ridge subdivision, and they'd like to take out those rear entry garages on the location, but they will maintain rear entry garages for the rest of the lots on the property. They've also requested to allow for a 10-foot temporary fire access easement that is along Jonesboro Road, because currently the way the plan was set up and proposed originally, there was going to be an access from Jonesboro Road off of the commercial and office pieces. But since those properties are not developed at this time, the applicant wanted to allow access from Jonesboro Road to that to the subdivision. This went to the Zoning Advisory Board on October 14th, and the Zoning Advisory Board did approve the plan as you see before you tonight, and staff has no recommendation on this particular request.
Does any board member have a question or comment for Brecca? If not, at this time, I would like the applicant or the applicant's representative to come forward, and please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Wayne Smith with D.W. Smith Design Group, 23 Hampton Street in McDonough. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. As you're aware, our firm was involved in the master planning and the design of this project back in 2005 at the time of the original rezoning. Certainly, Ms. Johnson's covered an awful lot of information. Would like to share one other bit of information. As we were going through the construction permitting, plan review, and approval process, another item that came to light, in addition to the detailed delineation of the wetlands and a detailed floodplain analysis, was as the fire department began to review the plans with the street layout that we had on the original master development plan, they had concerns about their ability for their equipment to adequately access all the area in a timely manner. And so in working with Captain Kelly and his staff at the time, through the construction review process, we came up with the plan that you see before you. So in addition to detailed engineering forcing us to change the layout just because of the characteristics of the land, as a matter of public safety and working with your public safety staff, additional revisions which you see reflected there before you were made a part of the plan. Be welcome to answer any questions that any of the members of the board may have at this time.
Does any board member have a question or a comment for Mr. Smith? All right, I'm going to reserve the remainder of your time. And at this time, I'd like to ask if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the applicant's request. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the applicant's request? Are there any additional questions or comments for staff? If not, Mr. Roark, this lies in your district, and I'll look to you for a motion.
Move to approve the request as stated.
Have a motion to approve by Mr. Roark. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Holder. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. The next item on the agenda is public hearing for case number MC-10-10, Albany Bank and Trust of Albany, Georgia. Requests multiple modifications to zoning conditions for property located on the north side of Jonesboro Road, west of Chambers Road, in land lots 85, 108, and 109 of the 6th District. And that's going to be exhibit number 8 in your book.
Thank you, Chairman. Board members, again, this same property, the request is to modify multiple conditions with one particular condition needing clarification from the board tonight. Condition number 5, and I can put this up on the overhead. Condition number 5 is regarding the regarding the improved and maintained the nature jogging and walking trails shall be installed in the common open space area where it will not adversely disturb environmental sensitive areas. This is going back to the property that's at the north end that was originally proposed for open space, and with the delineation of the floodplain and wetlands, the applicant states that this cannot necessarily be possible, but they would like to modify it, stating that due to the extent of the stormwater facilities, wetlands, and floodplain found in the proposed open space area at the northernmost portion of the subject property residential pod, walking or jogging trails are not feasible. However, walking trails will be provided throughout the residential area connecting pocket parks and open space per the revised master development plan dated July 30th, 2010. The next modification is, well, I would say clarification would be regarding the installation of meandering sidewalks on both sides of the street throughout the development. The applicant had some questions about whether the sidewalks had to be within the residential pod or in also the residential and commercial and office pods. So they are asking for clarification on that. Condition number 7 is regarding a streetscape plan. They'd like to modify it to state that a streetscape plan should be submitted to and approved by the Henry County Planning and Zoning Department to include sidewalks, street trees, landscaping, street lighting, and street furniture for the residential and commercial office pods. Street furniture within the residential component will be allowed for placement within pocket parks and open space due to private streets and limited setbacks. Condition number 5 under the residential pod states that rear entry garages shall be required, except the developer may have the option of front entry garages for those lots adjacent to the 4.7 acres of open space. And those lots would consist of lots 51 to 61 on the new plan, and the applicant is requesting to have lots 35 to 61 to be excluded from having rear entry garages. A few more. Under the open space heading along Walnut Creek, condition number 3, they'd like to eliminate it, and that would eliminate walking or life trail shall be comprised of a pervious material and may have sections constructed of decking to traverse wet areas. And they'd like to eliminate that in its entirety. Condition number 4, there shall be 75-foot buffer between Walnut Creek and the walking life trail. Since they are doing away with the walking life trail, they'd like for the condition to read, the first 50 feet of the stream buffer shall remain undisturbed, and the remaining 25 feet may be disturbed but may not contain any impervious surface in accordance with the code regulations. And those are the modifications that the applicant is requesting tonight.
Does any board member have a question or comment pertaining to what Brecca has presented? If Mr. Stamey?
Brecca, it looks like he wants to take off the sidewalks on both sides of the commercial element, or just one side of the commercial element?
Well, that's actually what the applicant is requesting clarification on. Do they need to put, they're still going to have sidewalks, but they want to know if they need to have it for not only the residential, but the commercial and the office pods. And that's what they need clarification on.
Because this was done as a PD, and there was interconnectivity between all this, correct?
Right, that's correct. And that's what, if that was the intention of the zoning condition, that's what the applicant is hoping to get cleared up tonight.
Okay, one other question. If we take away the rear alleyways, the garages on the back side of the houses and the front, are they going to push those houses further back, or are they going to remain?
Yes, currently on their proposed, with the rear entry garages, there was going to be a 20-foot setback. Now there will be an additional 12 feet to have a 32-foot setback on those lots that do not have rear garages.
Because what happens if the driveway won't hold the car ends up in the street.
Right.
And the sidewalks are not very effective when all that happens. Everything's loaded up. Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Brecca? Mr. Holder?
Brecca, on the stream buffer requirement, which is 75 feet for Henry County, basically.
Yes, sir.
The current state regulation is 50, and Henry County's is more stringent than the state's. Is that not correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, so we're complying with state at 50, and plus we have the other 25 feet is allowable, but with no impervious surface within the 25 feet.
Right, and that's actually per the code, per our
Understand.
ULDC.
But it is more restrictive than the state.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, and I'm assuming, Mr. Smith, that you're also representing the applicant on this request as well?
Yes, ma'am. And again, appreciate the presentation by Ms. Johnson. The primary things here, one is to ask that the conditions accurately reflect the approved, the revised or amended master development plan, and that's really the purpose of this request for the zoning condition modifications. Several of the points that have been raised, certainly Commissioner Stamey, you're exactly right. We worked with staff closely through this. We recognized right off that if the rear alley and rear entry lots were modified to be front entry, those homes needed to be set back. I can tell you of developments in our fair city that that wasn't done, and you can't walk down the sidewalk for all the cars in the driveway. So I appreciate that insight. That was something we worked on with the staff to try to help prevent that. The clarification that was requested regarding the sidewalks is not an intent on our part to do away with the sidewalks. Certainly, we understand the plan development, the connectivity, the interparcel access is a key component of this plan. Please understand, we are here, Albany Bank and Trust is the owner of the residential pod only. So we're not really in a position, I am not in a position, I do not represent Hillaby LLC, who is the owner of the commercial office and O&I tract. So I'm not here on their behalf. What we had raised the question with the staff is either if that's to be administered through the plan review permitting process with the staff, that's fine. But if there was particular concerns that the board might choose to address tonight, we felt this would be an opportunity just to have that clarified, because again, these conditions were originally presented for one owner who was going to develop the entire tract, and now we have multiple owners, and what we wanted to make sure was that our request didn't cause additional confusion for those that would come behind us.
Does anyone have a question?
Wayne, I have one other question.
Mr. Stamey.
Wayne, I know you're not trying to modify this condition, but just for a point of clarification, the community clock, do we know if it's set in the commercial element or is it going to set in the residential element?
Our discussions with the commercial owner is that it was believed that that would be more appropriate, would actually have more impact in the commercial office component as opposed to the residential. But really, as a matter of placement, the residential component, as you can tell, is in the northwest corner of the parcel. It's basically hidden from the road. And it was our understanding with the original discussions and the original conditions, the intent was to create, if you will, a landmark. Something that would be a signature for the entire development. And as such, it was our interpretation or our suggestion that that would come closer to fulfilling the original intent by having that placed within the commercial component. We've discussed that with the owners of the commercial, and you know, they're aware of that's how it's being presented at this time.
And these streets, interior streets, are all private, correct?
That's correct, yes, sir. Constructed to Henry County standards, but the maintenance of the streets would be part of the Property Owners Association responsibility.
Mr. Bowman?
Wayne, do you, is there currently a market? I mean, or are we just doing this to try and promote it to get a market, or? I know that doesn't have anything to do with us doing it. I'm just curious.
The answer is yes to both of those. There have been some interrogatories about the lots, and concern over some of the conditions have been expressed with a number of people that these have been marketed to. Mr. Tommy Arnold is the agent representing the bank on this property. He's here tonight. But we felt like in discussing this with the staff and with the elected officials that this was a maybe a reasonable compromise, given current market conditions, to try to maintain the integrity of the development from the outset, but trying to create the possibility for some interest. And again, there have been people recently expressing interest in these lots.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, I have a comment. Mr. Smith, the sidewalks issues has kind of got me a little concerned. I mean, if you got sidewalks going through the subdivision and through the commercial area, it's an interconnectivity, the way that I'd look at that. And I think that's something to eliminate that is a concern to myself, because if you've got these development where folks are living and they want to walk up and they get to the commercial part of it, the aspect of it, it just makes sense that there would be sidewalks there for them to.
Yes, sir. And Commissioner, we wholeheartedly agree. We're not requesting that they be eliminated. We've reflected those on our plan in the residential component. Our question was really for clarification as to how that would be implemented within the commercial component. Typically within the residential, you would have it on both sides of the street. In the residential, in the commercial and office pods, because of the type of development, you have large portions of the property that are developed that don't have streets per se. And so all we were suggesting was that if the staff handles that at the construction plan review permitting process, the condition to provide sidewalks will absolutely be complied with, as long as the staff has the authority to approve or reject the plan at the time they're submitted. So we concur 100%. We're not requesting to eliminate the sidewalks. It's very much a necessary part of the development, and I appreciate that.
So for clarification purposes, there needs to be an additional condition contained in the resolution. Is that correct? If you're going to clarify something, it needs to be clarified in the resolution.
That's correct. If there is a change to the existing condition per the board.
And what would you propose the wording of that be in order to accomplish what they're requesting, but still to assure that there's the interconnectivity that's important between the residential and the commercial pod?
Well, I guess we would need to decide, you all would need to decide if you want the commercial and office components to have sidewalks on both sides, or is it something that staff can handle at the development plan review phase to see what's appropriate or not?
If the owner of the commercial piece is not here seeking a modification, how can we clarify something on their behalf if they're not here to speak for themselves?
Well, we could add that it does have to be for the commercial and the office components. We could add that to the condition.
Madam Chair, I would offer on behalf of the applicant that if this is a point of confusion, I would just respectfully request that any discussion of the sidewalks be removed from consideration this evening and that the condition remain as stated originally. And maybe that would make it simpler for all parties.
I think it would, especially in light of the fact you have two different property owners.
Yes, ma'am. Understood. So if the staff would accept that on behalf of my client, which is Albany Bank and Trust, the owner of the residential, we would respectfully just request that any discussion regarding the condition for meandering sidewalks be removed from the table, be removed from our request tonight. That original condition would stand as originally approved.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? At this time, I'm going to ask if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the applicant's request. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the applicant's request? If not, we have a resolution before us, and this lies in District 2. And Commissioner Roark, I'll look to you for a motion.
Move to approve as proposed tonight.
All right, have a motion to approve with the four modifications. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bowman. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. The next item is a public hearing for case number RZ-10-05. Good Luck Holdings LLC of Atlanta, Georgia, request a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to C2 General Commercial for property located at the southwest corner of Panola Road and Highway 155 North in Land Lot 256 of the 11th District. Our presenter is Sherry Hobson Matthews, Planning and Zoning Services Director, Exhibit Number 9. Good evening again.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. As Chairman Mathis has indicated, Good Luck Holdings has requested a rezoning for property located along Highway 155 North at the intersection of Panola Road. The applicant is seeking to rezone the property to market it for future commercial development, and the commercial zoning that they are seeking is C2, which is the general commercial. Planning staff has reviewed the request and has given some consideration to the future land use map and to the goals and objectives that are outlined in the future land use map. Currently, the property is located in an area which is designated for future low-density residential up to 2.0 dwelling units per acre. The property is also located along State Route 155, which has been designated as a scenic corridor. The proposed zoning change would more than likely have some type of effect on the rural and residential character of the property, and given the current zonings that are around the property, as you can see from the zoning map, all of the property abutting the proposed development is currently zoned residential agricultural. The rezoning request did go before the Zoning Advisory Board, and denial was recommended. Should you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Does any board member have a question or comment for Sherry? Sherry, the scenic corridor, I do have one quick question about that. Where does that originate? And I'm assuming it goes to the county line, but where does that scenic corridor begin?
Well, according to the comprehensive land use plan, the State Route 155 North, the northern portion of the corridor is identified as the scenic corridor. If I remember correctly, it begins along the Crumley Road intersection, and then it traverses north along 155 to where this property is actually at the county line. So it would be the entire corridor.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'd like to ask the applicant or their representative to come forward at this time. And please state your name and address for the record, and you have 15 minutes. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Board Commissioners. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chucks Otaloka, representing Good Luck Holding of Atlanta, Georgia. I'm here in regard to the zoning in the property located in the intersection of 155 and Panola. On the subject property, the property is an intersection of 155 and Panola, which is bordering DeKalb County and Harris County. On this property in question, in regard to commercial development, there have been properties that have been equally zoned commercial within this the property in question, which is less than few hundred feet from the Interstate 155, and that is in River Road and Snapfinger. So the property I'm requesting to be zoned commercial is it's an intersection. There have been discussion about the area being designated as a scenic corridor or residential. It's an intersection of a state route, which is commensurate to most of the development that have been built in some other areas. I would suggest that the Board of Commissioners critically look at this property, this application, and make a considerable decision pertaining this request. That's my that's what I'm applying. That's what I'm pleading for.
Does any board member have a question or a comment for Mr. Otaluka?
Madam Chair, I had
Mr. Basler?
to Ms. Matthews. River Road, what he was alluding to, that is in DeKalb County, am I correct?
That is correct. I think this is actually a representation of what's in DeKalb County.
It is, in fact, and that has no bearing whether or not it is zone commercial or whatever in Henry County. It doesn't in my eyes. But you say that the scenic corridor actually goes from from Crumley Road back to through the county?
Yes, sir, along the Highway 155 North corridor. And more particularly, it's notable that along that corridor, and more particularly where this property is located, there's large tracts of residential agricultural zone property, and the state conservation park is within the vicinity of this property.
It goes back when you get into DeKalb County. It's the Path Foundation that crosses right there. Am I correct?
That is correct.
I understand. No further questions at this time.
Does any other board member have a question this time? All right, if not, I'm going to reserve the remainder of your time, and I would like to ask if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the applicant's request. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the applicant's request? Are there any further questions from the board pertaining to this item?
Just clarification, Madam Chair, for the viewers and the folks who is here. That is the southwest corner. Am I correct?
That is correct. Southwest corner of Panola Road at Highway 155.
Understood.
Any other questions? Mr. Basler, do you have any further questions?
Not this, no, ma'am.
If there are no further questions from the board, there's a resolution before you. Mr. Basler, I will entertain a motion since this lies in your district.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to deny the applicant's request.
We have a motion to deny the applicant's request. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Holder. Okay, all in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next item is a public hearing for case number RZ-10-06. Good Luck Holdings LLC of Atlanta requests a rezoning from OI Office Institutional to C2 General Commercial for property located at the northeast corner of Valley Road and Highway 155 North in land lot 133 of the 11th District. Our presenter is Brecca Johnson, Planning and Zoning Services, Exhibit Number 10. Good evening again.
Good evening again, folks. Yes, the applicant is requesting rezoning from O&I to C2 for future commercial use. The property is located at the northeast corner of 155 and Valley Road, just south of the 138-155 intersection. Some of the adjacent properties to the north is the daycare center, zoned RA. On the west side, there is the food depot location. There's a retention pond there. On the east and south is the Crossroads Valley subdivision, and then that piece directly to the west is zoned RA, but there's a pending rezoning on that property directly to the west. Some zoning history regarding this request. It came before, I guess, another board, maybe a few of you all, in 2004. It was denied, and what the applicant did was they went back and changed their site plan to request O&I at the south end and C1 at the north end, and it was denied by the board in November 2004. At that time, it came back for a consent order, and in February of 2005, the board approved the property to O&I with 13 conditions. The site plan I'll show you. It really just shows a depiction of what the applicant is proposing. They've got two proposed accesses from 155 and one access from Valley Road. The future land use map designation for this property is rural residential land uses, and it does fall within the activity center for Crossroads Activity Center. According to the future land use map, and the comprehensive plan, within an activity center, you have flexibility to possibly develop that particular area so that you can build a sense of community for the people who live in that area in and around it. Currently, the activity center for Crossroads has a particular typology, or a certain percentage of what types of uses are typical in this type of activity center. For this particular activity center, you have about 20% open. You would have generally 20% open space, 45% residential, 30% non-residential, and 5% civic uses, which would be maybe a fire station or something of that sort, of church. Currently, the property is already zoned O&I and currently would meet its non-residential land use, which would include office, commercial, or industrial uses. Staff has recommended denial of the request as is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan policies and the Crossroads Activity Center intent, which is to have a small node at major intersections. And a couple of those comprehensive plan policies is to promote nodal and clustered commercial development and discourage continuous and scattered commercial activities along major thoroughfares. Another policy is to encourage development that is sensitive to the historic context, sense of place, and overall setting of the community, and to protect the residential areas from encroachment of incompatible uses, including odor, lighting, and noise. And that's all. The Zoning Advisory Board did deny the request, and that's all I have.
And this particular tract, it backs directly up to homes, is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
correct?
Yes. The Crossroads Valley subdivision is directly to the east and the south.
And even with the changes made to the ULDC and the land use plan, when we talk about nodal developments, does the staff still recommend step-down zonings between heavy commercial and residential uses? Is that typically what you try to maintain, is a step down and not have intense commercial right up to residential?
Right, and it's where you have a transition of the types of uses that you would have at a major commercial intersection versus how closer you get to residential areas, and trying to protect the public health and welfare of the residents in that area.
Does any board member have a question or comment for staff? If not, I would like to ask the applicant or their representative to come forward at this time. Good evening again, and you have Mr. Otaluka, and you have 15 minutes to present your case.
The subject property on this destination if you look at subject property, there have been on this is an intersection of State Route 155 and 138, and there are business development that has been almost less than 30 feet from the property in question. There's a new construction of a Waffle House less than 40 feet direct opposite the property that I'm trying to rezone for commercial development. If it's being critically viewed, I believe that the Board of Commissioners should look at this well and possibly consider this this zoning development. The issue of the neighbors living concern, their concern has been, I have agreed to meet or exceed all their demand in terms of property, reducing the value of the property. That's what they said is their concern, to increase, to build a buffer that will be commensurate to commercial development and residential residential building very close to the commercial development. If you look at the subject question, the rate of traffic in this intersection less than 1,000 feet from this, the crossroad of 155 and 138. I think that I prefer that the Board of Commissioners should look at this critically and make a consideration on this. That's my plea on this regard.
Does any board member have a question for the applicant? All right, if not, Mr. Basler.
For Ms. Breckham, how far is it? Can you point out on this screen where the Waffle House is, in fact?
This is part of the depot. It's currently there, and this has been subdivided. And this is the older map, and the property is here.
Got the old aerial of
So there was, right.
And I don't believe that this area would reflect where the Waffle House is, but right in this area.
So there's actually 3 parcels between that and State Highway 138, correct?
Yes, sir.
Basically, the Waffle House is sitting on the adjoining property to the food depot, correct?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? All right, at this time, I'd like to call for anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the applicant's request. Mr. Otaluka, if you could have a seat for just a few minutes. Good evening. Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Good evening. I'm Wayne Chase. I live at 101 Valley Road, which I live directly across the street from this piece of property. I'm speaking for you tonight on behalf of my neighbors and friends, and here we all sit right here. I made a survey just this weekend about how many families have lived in this neighborhood for over 30 years. 9 families. 8 families over 20 years. 6 families over 10 years. That just about covers the neighborhood. We're a long-time neighbor and neighborhood right there. We were here, like Ms. Brecker said earlier, 5 years ago for the same thing. We feel that O&I is a proper fit for our neighborhood with the 13 conditions. I wrote the 13 conditions 5 years ago. We all agreed on those. The main thing we're looking at tonight is the curb cut. I'm going to use this. The curb cut would be right here on Valley Road. I live here. I drew this in. That would be my driveway if the curb cut goes in, according to the map that and the plans that was given to us. As we saw a minute ago, it's a little bit bigger picture of it here. You've got houses all along the back side of here. When the Winn-Dixie, now the Food Depot, was put in, we were told this was not going to happen, and this happens every time it rains hard. That's water coming off the Winn-Dixie, or now the Food Depot. That's going through the Mueller's front yard. Second picture is going across the street. As you can see in the first picture, the water is actually in the street on Harris Court. The second picture is going through the Wilson's backyard, where they put in more drainage rocks and stuff in there. And this is the third picture of that right there. This is what we have to face right now. So if we put this piece of property, if you allow this to go in as commercial, and he puts that in there, the next thing I have is he's putting the building, as you can see, right on the 40-foot buffer line. If you put that right on the 40-foot buffer line, with trucks coming in there to deliver goods to them, these people are going to be harassed all the time, including myself, because I'll be looking at it as I open my front door. It's in my front door. Like I said, I've been there for 30 years. The building was set back far in the property because what we've been told so far by the applicant that 155 is going to be widened, and I called DOT of Henry County. I even called the state DOT. Right now, no one can tell me when 155 is going to be widened. And the reason it was held up, according to the applicant, was because there was a lawsuit. No one can tell me that in the county or in the state. So I'm asking you tonight to deny this request. We were very well satisfied with what happened before. Also, the applicant has put waste from a concrete company on this property. He's dug holes. I've watched him myself take the dirt from the property and bring back waste from a concrete company, which is high in pH, which that does drain off into the creek that feeds off of 155. So I think you guys need to look at this in a whole, not just deny the request, but look at what he's already done. He's not been a good neighbor to us. And our neighbors, we sit and we talk about this. We had a meeting Sunday about this. Commissioner Basler has been at one of our meetings, and I appreciate that. I appreciate what you guys have done as county, but we need to keep this in a whole because we're already looking at more commercial coming in the area. I'm not against something improving the neighborhood, but this C2 is not going to do that. And right now, he don't even know what he wants to put there. We understand now he wants to sell the property as soon as it gets commercial. And I really think before anyone comes before this county, they should be able to at least tell us what they want to put there, and they can't sell it for at least 10 years. So, and I think some other neighbors want to speak about this too.
Mr. Chase, I'd like to ask you a question. The photographs that you have of the stormwater, Mr. Basler, have you seen those pictures?
No, ma'am, I haven't seen those pictures, and it was about a month or 2 months ago, maybe, I'd stopped by the homeowner association meeting where it was a group that they had meeting up there one night. I did stop by to see some of the concerns. I was told about this, but I've never seen the pictures.
We were told by the county years ago when this was coming in that the county would not do anything about this because it's private property.
Mr. Sanders, could you take those photographs and the information and have our stormwater department look into this?
I sure can, Mr. Chase. If you'll just leave those with me, I'll get them back to you after I contact our stormwater folks.
And the other issue that I would like to see if we can look into is the possibility that some inert landfill has been placed on this property. If there's been construction, building materials, and things like that, is that something that's acceptable under our ordinance?
No, ma'am.
And if we could ask someone to go out and take a look at that as well, we'll check into that.
Madam Chair, just to clarify to Mr. Chase, did we not address some of these issues here? When I remember that the evening that I was out there was two gentlemen that give me their names and all, and I did pass that on to Stormwater. Has no one since then gotten a hold of those folks?
Not to my knowledge, because when we had our meeting Sunday, no one said anything about it, anything at all about that. I mean, at all. Nothing's been said.
Well, I'll assure you that that will get addressed.
I mean, this is something that's been going on, and I've called code enforcement. Code enforcement come out there, and he put up a silt fence, but the gentleman lives in the property right. I'll let you show you real quick. Lives in this piece of property right here. When it rains, the water just goes through his driveway. He has replaced his garage door because the water goes back up underneath his garage. So that's what we're facing right, and this is a big problem here. So if we go C2 with this right here, knowing what's happening with the runoff already that we've got, it's going to bring more runoff. And I'm just asking you to deny this. We don't need this.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am. If you would step forward and state your name and address for the record.
I've got some pictures. I don't know how well this is going to work. My name is Kella Chase. I live in, of course, the subdivision we're discussing. Let me see, guys, because I think pictures just really can make a good statement here if this is going to work. Okay, is that turned the right direction for you guys?
We can see it.
Okay, that's actually a picture looking directly out of Wayne's front door onto the property. And that's a very old pecan tree. And then that property right across the road there, we understand, is there's a request in for it to be commercial. The reason I would like to stand here tonight and speak to you folks is with everybody behind me in our neighborhood, we feel as though the O&I zoning that was decided on back in 04 and 05 continues to be a very good fit for this property. And of course, if it is agreed on that it stays O&I, we would like to see the other neighboring properties, the property across the street and the next property down from that, as you head down the road to Melrose subdivision, stay this kind of zoning. We think it's a really good transition from the commercial four-way. Oh, I'm sorry. I got near the pictures there and got away from it. Anyway, we feel as though it would be a very good transition from the four-way. This piece of property is near the four-way, but not terribly close to the four-way. I have got a picture here I'm going to try to find, if I can locate it, that gives you a little bit of an idea, and I don't know what the exact footage is, but that's going into the food depot. All these cars you see here, way down that way is where the front of our subdivision is. So how exact, and this is the daycare center, which is actually an early learning center, which is this property, this property here, that's across the street from Food Depot. Let me say, all of us agree that something like that in the front of our subdivision would be fine with us. That's something we could live with. We feel like that's a lot less intrusive. We feel like that's something that would close at a decent hour and not have lighting and noise. I'm very concerned about commercial development in that we would have dumpsters and trucks coming and going, and the noise of the dumpster and the odor and the lights. I mean, this is the front of our subdivision. Again, the O&I think is a good fit for that immediate area as we transition from the four-way. This also is a picture I took, and it's somewhere in the Eagles Landing area, just to give you an idea of what we could be happy with. You know, I believe this would fall under an O&I zoning. I did do a little bit of homework here. An O&I, to the best of my knowledge, would be office space, a government building, a real estate building, a medical or dental office, finance or insurance, maybe a nursing home. All of that we could be happy with. What we wouldn't be happy with would be something like this, which is what this gentleman originally was proposing, and again, I apologize, that's upside down. This is a tire center, which would fall into that C2 zoning. This is another picture. I don't know if you can see it real well. That's right out front of the tire center. That's another picture of what we would be looking at the front of our subdivision. If that was zone C2 and he put a tire center in there, that would be at the front of our subdivision. Along with this, that would be at the back of the property. That's a truck full of tires. That's just not very appealing to us. That all being said, we also have a petition tonight of the neighbors that have signed, feeling like this still is a very good fit. O&I would be a good fit for this particular area. And in closing, I would just like to say that I would hope that this gentleman would consider this and possibly consider a business of this nature where he can move on from this situation and get on with his business, and we can put this finally to bed. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Chase. And you can give the petition to the clerk, and she can keep that for the records. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak in opposition to this request? Yes, sir. If you would, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Board. My name is Jeff West. I currently reside at 991 Crumbly Road, but I own the property. Well, I don't have the map, but it's directly behind this property in question. I'm the middle home that backs up to this property. And on several occasions, I've talked to the gentleman that has applied for this rezoning. And, you know, I'm completely in opposition because of my property that backs up to the property. You put any kind of commercial operation in there that would be open from, say, the break of dawn or from break of daylight till dawn or till midnight, and it would disturb my property something terrible. It's a rental home that I have there, and I don't think I would be able to rent it, honestly, if any kind of, say, a McDonald's or a fast food, and even the zoning board, when we talked about that, you could put anything from like a Hooters even in there. You know, nobody would want that in their backyard. So I request that the board deny this. And that's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to this request? If not, does any board member have any other questions or comments? If not, Mr. Holder? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the applicant's request? Thank you for reminding me of that. Okay. All right. If not, Mr. Basler, this lies in your district, and I'll look to you for a motion.
I do have a few comments to begin with.
Honestly, he raised his hand to
Mr.
respond.
Luca, is there something else that you would like to add? Okay, please step forward. You do have 10 minutes left on your time.
In regard to the dilapidated structures, the photographs they took, that's what I intend to build there, to make a case on the denial. That's not the case. I've owned that property for over 10 years, and that property, they have been denying it to be rezoned so that I can develop that property. My intention today is to show you what the kind of structure I want to put over there as a street mall, so that you compare it to what they brought out over there, whatever they took the picture, I don't know. So you guys should equally critical take a look at this and consider this lesson. I'm just making a plea. My voice could be different, but I'm trying to make a plea so you can look at it based on the commercial buildings surrounding the area, less than 300 or 440 feet from the subject property in question. If this is being critically reviewed, I think this zoning, the Board of Commissioners should be able to rezone this C2, and I will exceed whatever the requirement is in order for this thing to take place. Thank you. I want to show you the pictures that I have here to be listened. This picture represents the kind exact replica of the street mall that I have to put over here. It will be better than anything in our surrounding area. So the scenario that I'm going to put a tire shop to mess up the area or put down the subject property. Remember, I'm also I am equally a neighbor. There's no way I would. There's no way I would want my neighborhood to be run down. So I don't know how they get all this, where they get all these ideas that I want to bring the property value down, that they are not, this is good neighbor, But my plea is for the Board of Commissioners to critically examine all these issues and make a recommendation for approval, so that I exceed whatever requirement they needed in order to make this thing happen. Thank you very much. I haven't completed. I still have some pictures that I'm applying. My voice could be different, but that's I may not be talking the language or how putting it in much different, but that's I just learned how to speak English, and I've been here for over 20 years, so that's my accent. Thank you.
Anyone have a question for the applicant? And you're welcome to go ahead and put the pictures up.
If you look at these pictures and compare it to the pictures that they just brought over here, that the kind of this thing I want to build, they are nowhere, they are just like day and night. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Basler, you had some comments you wanted to make?
Just for clarification, this thing, Madam Chair, if I'm reading this right, in August 26th of 2004, it came before the Board of Commissioners. Am I correct?
Yes.
It had a consent order that was sent back to the Board of Commissioners on November the 16th of 2004, correct?
Yes, sir.
There's a consent order.
Board Chairman, Commissioner Basler, if I may, just for clarification, I know earlier I stated that in an activity center you could have industrial uses. That is not the case. What I meant to say is you can have institutional uses, like civic uses, like a church or school or library. And also, I did want to address a couple of the citizens' comments. Mr. Chase's comment about the runoff from the property. There are two conditions on this particular property now, condition number 11 and 12, that address how the grading and drainage issue has to be addressed. so that the runoff issues do not continue to happen. And also, condition number 6 states that outdoor storage and long-term parking is prohibited, just for clarification.
Any further comments, Mr. Basler?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Rowart?
I have one question for county staff. Mr. Chase had mentioned making inquiries about any possible widening of 155. Have we gotten any indication from the state that anything is going to happen to 155 in the near future down that far? I mean, I know the intersection of 138's been completed.
No, sir. The only project that we are showing for a future widening is the southern end of 155. But there is currently no plans in our regional transportation plan for the widening of 155 north.
Anyone else? Mr. Basler, this lies in your district. I'll look to you for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to deny the applicant's request.
We have a motion by Mr. Basler to deny the applicant's request. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Bowman. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for case number RZ-07-24. Standard Properties Incorporated of McDonough, Georgia request a rezoning from RA Residential Agricultural to C2 General Commercial for property located on the southeastern corner of the intersection of Highway 155 and Selfridge Road. The property is located in land lot 27 of the 11th District. The request is for a commercial development. This request was denied by the Board of Commissioners on January 15, 2008. This item will be heard as a consent order from Superior Court Judge Crumbly. Our presenter is Sherry Hobson Matthews, Planning and Zoning Director, Exhibit number 11. It was a court order.
Was a typo in the executive summary.
It was a typo.
Yes, ma'am. But it was a court order for
Okay,
remand.
it was a court order by Judge Crumbly, Superior Court Judge.
That's correct. Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. As Chairman Mathis has indicated, the request before us this evening is a result of a court order that was granted in September of this year. The applicants, if you all may recall, sought to rezone this property from RA to C2. At the time that the request came in, staff looked at the request and based their analysis on the designation of the future land use map, which at that time designated this property for future commercial and service uses. Most notably, at the time that the request did come in for the commercial and service designation, the county, too, was in the process of amending the future land use map to look towards more type of nodal developments, activity center type developments. And as a result, the future land use map was amended to reflect a change of future designation for this property. Although the future land use map in place at the time that this request came in, staff did take into consideration what we have on the ground today, or what map is in place today. One thing that I wanted to note that was not noted or clearly indicated when the request originally came in 2007 is criteria point 3 of your staff report. And it mentions the consistency with the land use plan. Again, although the future land use map did designate the property for future commercial and service land uses, the future land use map is also tied to a set of policies and goals. One of those policies, or one of the goals that was mentioned, was the development of patterns of business centers located relative to population patterns and transportation facilities. One of the criteria, or one of the objectives that's listed in the comprehensive plan is to make sure that we use the land use plan as a guide for controlling the location and extent of commercial zoning along major roads and highways throughout the county. One thing that's mentioned is that ribbon commercial extensions should be limited to areas where this type of development already exists and where high traffic volumes encourage other land uses. If you'll look at the monitor or look at the zoning map that's displayed on the monitor, you'll see that the property in question is hatched. But if you pay close attention, the property surrounding this property is currently all zoned R2, with the exception of a 49.15 acre tract of land, which was rezoned by the Board of Commissioners to R2. Some other things that staff looked at was the existing character of the area, given that there's already quite a bit of commercial in the corridor that's probably about a mile south of this development. One other thing that we also looked at is looking to and defining that this property is also located along the 155 scenic corridor. So that was one other thing that we did take into account. Planning staff, again, did recommend denial of the C2 request and has recommended approval of an R2 request with 16 zoning conditions. I'll be more than happy to go over the zoning conditions, or I can place them on the overhead so that you all can take a look at them, but just kind of let me know which direction you want me to go in from there.
I'd like for you to put them up, and if you would, go over those.
One thing that staff did consider in coming up with the zoning conditions was making it comparable to the zoning conditions on the existing 49.15 acre tract of land. Based on the tax maps that we have currently, it does not appear that the 4 acre tract has been split from the 49.15 acre tract of land, so staff felt that it would be more comfortable and comparable in making sure that we place similar and compatible zoning conditions on the remaining 4 acre tract of land. If you should have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Over to the second page, so everybody can view the second page, please. Thank you.
And then after the conditions, one other thing I wanted to place on the overhead is a copy of the conceptual site plan that was submitted at the time that the rezoning application was submitted in 2007. At this time, it is still my understanding that there is no proposed end user on the property. It's just a conceptual site plan. So there is no proposed use at this time. And for clarification purposes, the map or the site plan that I've just displayed on the overhead will give you an idea of the proposal based on the R2 that's already approved with the tract of land that is shown for future or potential commercial.
Comment for Sherry? If not, I'd like to ask the applicant or their representative to come forward at this time.
Chairman of the Board, Brian Strickland here on behalf of the applicant. It's pretty simple. This matter's been before you guys before. We actually filed a constitutional rights letter today with the board and also sent copies to you all today. And that letter actually lays out what we believe to be a constitutional classification for this property. And that's all I'd like to say at this time on the record.
Thank you. We'll reserve the remainder of your time.
Thank you.
At this time, I would like to ask if there is anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the applicant's request. You're wishing to speak in favor of the request? Yes, ma'am. All right, if you would step to the podium and please state your name and address for the record, and you have 15 minutes.
My name is Timothy Dean. I live at 821 Luella Road, Locust Grove, Georgia. Good evening, Madam Chair, board members. The reason I'm here, I ask you to approve this request for 3 reasons, 4 actually. 1, tax revenues. 2, jobs. And 3, reduce legal expenses for the taxpayers of the county. Number 4, and I guess my personal fundamental reason for this, I don't have an interest in this property other than I believe the highest and best use for that corner is commercial. I also believe in the fact of ownership. The person that owns that property can direct the use of that in compliance with C2 zoning, meaning just like Brecca earlier mentioned in the last case, the example where they restricted long-term parking and they restricted outside storage. These are things that allow a C2 user to be a good neighbor and not work against the community, but to be a part of the community, work with it. I also believe that the C2 user should be accountable, and I think that the codes are written that way. Again, I think the fundamental use is ownership. A lot of times people complain, and I think to myself, well, why don't you collectively buy the property? And then you can do what you'd like with it. You know, if you want to put a park there, you know, like if, for instance, if a subdivision, I'm not sure in this case, but say that the subdivision wanted to buy it, the homeowners get together, pool their money, and then they can direct the what they will with that property. And so again, I just wanted to recap. I believe that tax revenues are generally higher in commercial uses. 2, if you're looking for jobs, I mean maybe on that particular site may not be a big impact of jobs, but typically with commercial uses, you generate, you know, people that need jobs, places to work. And 3, the litigation costs are something that can be prevented. Again, I would request that in the case that this C2 zoning is given on the property, that the developer and the owner be accountable. They be a good neighbor, that they don't do anything that would be a nuisance or work against the people there. But I just believe that this would be fundamentally good for the county, and not just on that intersection, but other corners in the county where the highest and best use lends itself to a commercial use, where the situation does not lend itself for a residential area. And I appreciate you allowing me to speak this, and thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Daniels, do you mind telling me how close you live to this piece of property?
I live on the other side of the county in Mr. Holder's district, in District 1. And the reason I speak on this case is because I believe the decisions that are made in that district also affect the precedent for the county as a whole.
I just didn't get where you live. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. I live in Luella.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the applicant's request?
There was another gentleman back there.
There is someone else who wishes to speak in favor?
He raised his hand.
Okay. All right, if not, I would like to ask if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the applicant's request. If you would, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Connie Cook, and I live at 560 Cotton Indian Creek Road in McDonough. First of all, I would like to ask everyone who's here in opposition to this rezoning to please stand up and remain standing. If you'll remain standing for just a moment. Our community has steadfastly fought against commercial rezoning of this property for years now. You have on record past petitions that have been signed by over 140 citizens of the community in opposition to this rezoning. Tonight, we continue to stand in opposition and our reasons remain the same. Thank you. You can sit down. Commercial development does not fit the quiet, rural nature of our neighborhoods. It would forever change the character of our area and change it in a negative way. Commercial development would increase traffic on a road that offers a choice of a dead end or a rutted dirt road with a narrow one-lane bridge. It would increase the potential for crime and jeopardize our privacy. Commercial development would redefine our community and devalue our homes and residential property, significant and personal investments of the homeowners in the area, many of whom have lived there for many years, some for decades. People like Bill and Ann Cook, who've lived on their Selfridge Road farm for 32 years. Mrs. Eddie Mae Addy, who's also lived on Selfridge Road since 1978. My father, Wesley M. Cook, who's lived on Cotton Indian Creek Road since the early 1970s. My husband and I lived on Selfridge Road for 15 years and have lived on Cotton Indian Creek Road for 6 years. My mother now lives in the home that we had on Selfridge Road. There are many other people who've lived in our community just as long or longer. As you can see, the people who live here have put down deep roots because this is a wonderful area to live in. If commercial development is allowed in, it will cease to be that, and many of them will choose to leave. Commercial rezoning of this property would be in complete contradiction to the county's new comprehensive plan, which is a more thorough and well-thought-out plan than this county has ever had. And it would set an irreversible precedent for commercial development at that intersection and all along that portion of Highway 155. Commercial development that could endanger our beloved Big and Little Cotton Indian Creeks and the natural beauty around them. The traffic light that was added at our intersection should not be used as a reason or excuse for commercial development. For years, the residents of the area had asked for light and intersection improvements for safety reasons because it was a very dangerous intersection with limited sight distance. Those improvements were made for our safety, not as an avenue for developers to exploit them for financial gain. Even with the improvements, the intersection still remains dangerous because of the way it was configured. In fact, last April, a young man lost his life in a tragic accident there. Commercial development at this corner would only make the situation worse. In contrast, the East Lake Road intersection is designated in the comprehensive plan as a commercial node, which is fitting considering the commercial development already there and the recent extension of that road to Eagles Landing Parkway, creating a direct route to Interstate 75. Henry County already has an abundance of small commercial developments that are largely or completely unoccupied, or ones where small businesses come and go in rapid succession because they cannot survive in this economy. I speak from personal experience. I had such a business. In our view, it would not be in the best interest of the community or the county at large to rezone this land for commercial use when there is so much unoccupied commercial space already in existence throughout the county. Having gas stations, convenience stores, drug stores, and strip shopping centers on every corner does not improve our quality of life. It diminishes it. We have all of those things and more within a 5-minute drive. We don't need or want them any closer. When the lawsuit filed by the owners of this property against Henry County went to trial in September, Judge Wade Crumbley made it clear in his ruling that he was not ordering the county to rezone the property for commercial use. His point, and I was in the courtroom and I testified, his point was simply that the corner should not remain RA since the surrounding piece had been rezoned R2. He left it open to you, the Board of Commissioners, to decide how it should be rezoned, including the option of making it R2 to fit in with the rest of the standard Sowell property. In our view, rezoning it R2 with the same conditions placed on the rest of the property would be the only fair and logical rezoning decision. We ask you to deny the commercial request once again and protect the interests of the people who actually live in the community and are proud to call it home. We thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am. If you would, step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson and Board of Commissioners. My name is Rondrea Smith-Jones, and I actually live 4 houses down from the intersection. My address is 103 Selfridge Road, and I agree with our spokesperson who spoke here today that the reason my husband and I moved from Atlanta, Georgia to McDonough was because of the neighborhood, how quiet it is. I really enjoy my neighbor next door, Miss Nancy. She's been there forever. Actually, the house I live in, she gave it to her daughter for her wedding present. I don't want a convenience store. I don't want a whatever, I guess, commercial lot or anything on that intersection because it's already dangerous. My kids can't even ride their bikes up and come down because of the way the deepness of the curve is. It's a blind curve when you come around the curve. So, no, we don't want that. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the applicant's request? Good evening. If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Ann Cook, and I live at 148 Selfridge Road, McDonough, Georgia. Most of you are familiar with the way we feel, which is the same as the other 2 residents have felt. Our property adjoins the remaining 49 acres, so our farm adjoins that. It is agriculture. We do raise cows and horses, and so I don't think our road can handle it. I don't know of, it would decrease our value in our home and our property if there was commercial. I don't know of many people who would want to look at a new development, housing development, with a commercial piece of property right in the front of it. Plus, I was very encouraged to hear that that was the scenic corridor up through there, and that counts it in if it starts at Crumley Road and goes up to the end, up to DeKalb County. So we're just asking once again that y'all take into consideration the homeowners who do live there, and this is our home, and we have been there 32 years, and it's our home. That's the only place my husband and I have lived since we've been married. We thank y'all so much for y'all's consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. With the remaining time, is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to the applicant's request? If not, I will ask the applicant's representative, Mr. Strickland, if you would like to come back up, if you have 14 minutes left on your time.
One thing I'll add, Madam Chairman, that is, as indicated in the letter that was presented today, we also believe that a C1 classification would also be constitutional. Obviously, this is an issue for you guys to decide now what is constitutional for this property. But it's our position that C1 or C2, and I say C1, I mean under the existing zoning ordinances, would also be constitutional. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Does any board member?
I have a question for you, Mr. Strickland, if you don't mind. Has this 4 acres been divided from the other larger parcel?
I can't speak to that right now. I'm not sure what steps have been taken by property owners since this originally was applied for. And since this has been in litigation and will be possibly more litigation, I will not speak to that right now.
Okay.
Any other questions from board members for the applicant? Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? If not, Mr. Stamey, this lies in your district, and I will entertain a motion.
Sure, we do have 16 conditions, correct?
That is correct, and I do want to make one modification to condition number 15. Currently, the condition reads, the applicant shall provide a traffic study, et cetera, et cetera. Prior to that statement, I would like to add the following sentence. Should a full access to the residential portion of the property be denied by the Georgia Department of Transportation, the applicant shall be required to provide a traffic study prepared by a Georgia registered professional traffic operations engineer, and then the remainder of the conditions shall follow.
Madam Clerk, you get that? Thank you.
I would just insert, Madam Chair, should full access from Highway 155 be denied by GDOT? I think just for clarification.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, Mr. Stamey?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to follow the planning staff's recommendations of denial of the zoning from RA to C2 and approve the zoning from RA to R2.
And that would be with 16
With
conditions.
16 conditions and the modified on the one that you were just received.
We have a motion on the floor by Mr. Stamey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Roark. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the approval of the minutes, August 17th, regular meeting minutes, and August 23rd, called meeting minutes. I had a couple of minor corrections, word corrections, I believe, on the August 17 minutes. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, I need a motion to approve the minutes. Motion by Mr. Basler, second by Mr. Roark. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. Did anyone sign up for public comment? County Manager, any public comments?
No, ma'am.
Ms. County Attorney?
No, ma'am.
The upcoming meetings and events, Thursday, November 25th and Friday, November the 26th, all county offices will be closed in observance of the Thanksgiving holiday. Monday, December 6th at 9 a.m., we have a workshop meeting, and Tuesday, December 7th at 9 a.m., we have a regular meeting. If there's no further business to come before this board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Roark, second by Mr. Basler. All in favor? Motion carries 5-0. We stand adjourned.